Chicago Ridge Public Library. Today I'm going to show you the steps that you would take in order to make a fabric mask. This particular mask is one that I like, but it's not better than any other particular mask. I just thought I like the pattern, but feel free to make whatever type of mask you like. Some people like the rectangular ones with the tucks. I just happen to like the way that this one fits around my glasses. It's a good fit for me. So what you will need, this particular pattern is from craftpassion.com. For it, you will need a 14 by 15 piece of 100% cotton fabric of your choosing, and then a 14 by 15 inch piece of non-woven interfacing, 2 pieces of a 1/4 inch elastic. These are 8-inch pieces. More than likely, this will be a little large for most people. You probably need about 6.5 to 7-inch pieces. The next thing that you will need is a 7-inch piece of plastic coated wire. It's basically a long twist tie. You will need scissors, and you will need pins, thread, a sewing machine, ironing board, fabric marker, ruler, and tweezers. So the very first step that I'm going to show you is to take your tweezers and take your plastic coated wire or twist tie, and you're going to curl the end so that the wire does not poke the wearer of the mask. So you just roll it over. I don't know if you can see that. It's just like a little loop. I found that the tweezers work better for me. I tried using my fingers. Some of you have more nimble fingers than I do, so you probably have better luck with that. And then at that point, bend your wire in half so that you find the middle point, and that way later on you'll have that ready to go. Then your next step will be to lay out your fabric on your flat surface and put your interfacing over it, and then fold your fabric in half with the interfacing inside. So like this. This is the 15-inch way, 15 inches. Okay, then you'll take your pattern that you've printed out and you will lay it out like so, and then take your pins and pin it on your fabric, pinning through all 4 layers. You want to cut this out. You want to have a total of 4 fabric pieces and 4 interfacing pieces. I just found it easier to print out the pattern twice and lay it out next to each other like this. Okay, then take your scissors and cut that out, and voila, you have your pieces, and they will look like this. You have 2 for the front and 2 for the back, and then you'll pin those together along this curve, the outside curve, not the inside curve, and do the same with this. And then you're going to stitch. All of your seam allowances except for one are going to be 1/4 inch. So you're going to stitch this one starting at the top 1/4 inch, but this one you're going to stitch 1/8 inch along here, making sure to back stitch at the beginning and at the end of both of those. Once you have back stitched and stitched your 1/4 inch and 1/8 inch, you have your two pieces, they look like this. You're going to take your scissors, and this is why I like the small ones. I like the larger ones for cutting out the actual fabric, but these are good for snipping threads and for trimming your curve. So you want to cut into the curve. I would pinch right where your sewing line is and snip right into that because you don't want to cut that sewing line. Okay, maybe you can see it better on the bigger piece. I'm cutting into this so that it'll lay nice once it's turned. So that's all cut right to this sewing line. Okay, that's one step. The next step after doing that, and like I said, once you've trimmed it, you'll want to turn it and take it to your iron and ironing board and press it so it lays nice and flat. And there you have the other one. So then take your piece that has the 1/4 inch seam allowance, this particular one, the wider seam allowance, and you're going to mark with your ruler and your marking pen 1 inch from this inside curve. Okay, and you can see my blue line here. And that is going to be where you're going to place your wire, your plastic coated wire or your twist tie. So what you're going to want to do is open up the center seam and place the bend of your twist tie or plastic coated wire, and you're going to hold it in place and you're going to zigzag, keeping the wire in the middle of your zigzag. You want a nice big zigzag, and you're going to start right here and zigzag over the wire until you get past here. So zigzag from here to here, then come back and lay it on here and zigzag from your center to here. Okay, once that step is complete, you will take your front and your back, so your piece that has the zigzag and your piece that has the 1/8 inch seam allowance, the curve, and pin those together. So the 1/8 inch seam allowance is on the outside and the 1/4 inch with your wire is on the inside. And you'll pin the top and the bottom. And you want to match your center seams and your edges. So when you're stitching this at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, you want to start in the center up here, and stitch down here to the end. Make sure you back stitch when you start your stitching and back stitch at the end here so it doesn't pull out. You're locking it in basically. And then come back to the center and start stitching and stitch this way. So you're starting at your center seam and stitching out to the ends. Same thing for the bottom. It's not as necessary for the bottom, but with these curves, I found it much easier to start at the center and stitch out each way. So once those are stitched, it will look like this. So you had your right sides together. So now you're going to turn it right side out. And again, take it to your ironing board and press it so it's all nice and neat. And it should look like this when it's all pressed. The other thing you want to do while you're at the ironing board with your iron is to turn in your open sides about a 1/2 inch. So turn those in about a 1/2 inch and press those down. What you will do then is to take your piece of elastic and insert it into that opening. Insert probably about 3/4 of an inch in and about 1/4 of an inch down. And you'll start stitching here and stitch down and back and back and forth and back and forth. And then you can continue stitching down here, and before you get to the bottom, insert the other piece of elastic so you'll have a loop. Make sure that that's also in well far enough so that you catch it while you're sewing. And that's also about 1/4 of an inch from the bottom. So you'll do the same thing on both open ends. And then the very last step is to top stitch the top and the bottom of your mask so that it looks all nice and neat. And this is what your finished mask should look like. Good luck making your masks. We miss all of you, and we hope all of you are being safe. And have a good one, people. Bye.